So I remember getting down into my car and being like, I think he just like crossed a lot of boundaries. Like that was like really inappropriate. And so I remember emailing my monitoring company and being, because I was like, is he going to do something to my hair sample? Like, why was he saying like, are you going to fuck it up? And why was he touching me? Like there were so many weird things that happened. So ended up going through my monitoring company saying I refuse to go to this guy anymore. He did X, Y, and Z. And also wanted to email them too, because like I was afraid he was going to do something with my hair. Like I don't know, because I also remember one time he told me if I wanted to take X, Y, and Z drugs, they wouldn't show up on my drug screen the next day. Like I was like, is he trying to get me busted? Like, oh, this is just, anyways, nothing that he should be talking to you about. So, yeah, that was completely inappropriate. And I remember talking about it in some group meetings, and it's actually happened to other people, and they've come forward about it too. So I don't really know what's happened in regards to that, but I hope, yeah, anybody listening just knows that that's not okay, that kind of thing. So for testing, my testing with my local guy was great. He was actually very nice, but the other two places that I had to get tested at were terrible experiences. It's just, again, very vulnerable. And the first time I had to get tested, it was a watched test. They had to watch me pee in the cup. Like the door had to be open and they're standing there. And I was like, this is crazy. Like,
okay. So these are called witnessed urines, for people who don't know. I was operating under the impression just until a couple of weeks ago that these were always done, they were rarely done to outpatients. Like if you're in a monitoring program after treatment, I didn't even know they were still doing this. But apparently they're doing them. And are you saying that was the person who did the witness test for you at least a female?
yes, yeah, and it was in the IME office. It was with the IME person. So my IME physician was a male, and there was a female in the office that stood there. I don't even know if she was looking at me, because I was looking down, being like, this is humiliating. Like this is, I don't even know how I was able to pee, but.
Just for people, just so you know what they're asking for, the protocol is you pull down your pants, you lift up your shirt, and you do a spin. And we're talking all your clothes are removed. That part alone blew my mind that was happening, and that has happened, is happening still with people who are of opposite genders. Like I can't wrap my head around how that's going on and nobody's suing anybody. Even the fact that, I mean, if you take a second to think about what that's like, I mean, I have the way I'm designed, I got a shy bladder. All through treatment, when they sent me to Homewood, I couldn't, they wanted a witness urine, and I told them right up from the beginning, it's not going to happen. You're going to be standing there for hours and hours. Like, I just can't do it if you're going to stare at me like that. And so eventually they just, they let me go, and they made a note on my report at the end or whatever. But I just, it's such an unnecessary further shame promoting. I don't understand why. If they're that worried about somebody who's in a program such as yourself, where you never had any false positives, you never stepped out of line, you're fine the whole time. But even if you did, is that appropriate at all? I don't think so.
I don't think so. It's violating some kind of human right somewhere.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
And that needs to stop. So
you've got someone who's in a position of power, just inherently, because you've got someone who's having to prove their sobriety to their employer and to their union, etc. So you've got the person who's on that receiving end. There is a power imbalance there. Huge. And in today's day and age, Cassidy, I'm sure you've had to take trauma-informed practice in services. This is a really sort of a hot button issue within healthcare, that you were to come into your interactions with all individuals through the lens that they have lived experience and things that affected them, and trauma, or not necessarily, but it's the understanding that you don't know what that person is coming from, and so you want to move forward with them in the most sort of understanding, empathetic way possible, and certainly not in a way that would be triggering or jarring.
Yeah.
And so for this organization to be conducting themselves in that manner with a population with addictive behavior, it's appalling. I just I'm sort of at a loss for words. Like, and I think our listeners will be too. It's just stunning that there was that level of negligence and worse.
There's worse. Yes. Yeah. I obviously, we can't, we're choosing not to discuss the wilder stuff that's been going on out there, but people should be aware that this is happening. This could happen to you, and it shouldn't be happening to anybody. It's a human rights violation.
Good for you for emailing the company,
yes.
and at least expressing that you're
yes.
uncomfortable with, and uncomfortable with your potential test results.
Yes, thank you, because that takes courage when you don't know how that's going to go either. Any complaining can be seen as relapse behavior, and you just never know, but you had the courage to do it because you knew it was the right thing to do. And thank you for doing that. Yeah. Good point, Corey.
Cassidy, what was it like to date while you're on a monitoring contract?
Interesting question. I did it talked about that I was in a relationship going into the monitoring program. That relationship ended, and I into the program. It was a healthy breakup. It was fine. Just distance and lifestyle changes just wasn't compatible. We still talk, actually. He's a good guy, but I dated two other people. I'd say like I dated a little bit, and then I had two kind of relationships during the program. It was, oddly enough, the first person I dated, it was super weird. He is a non-drinker. He's never drank in his entire life. Super weird. I know, it's so random. But it's funny because when you are dating somebody, in your head you're like, they're not going to like me. I don't drink. What do you do? What do people do other than drink? Are you supposed to go to a brewery? I don't know what you're supposed to do. Overthinking, all that shame, all that inadequacy. And then you tell someone you don't drink, and they're like, oh, cool, let's go do this. And you're like, okay, guess it's not that big of a deal. Or I found some people I would be, they dating apps or whatever, and they'd be like, oh, do you want to go for a drink? And I'm like, oh, I actually don't drink. And they're like, oh, I should probably take a break from drinking too. Like it wasn't, I feel like for me, I had shame, but then as soon as you were honest and you talked about it, it wasn't an issue. Yeah, so I've dated those couple people, and it was fine. I don't know. It wasn't, I feel like it was more me thinking it was going to be hard than it actually was, because if you're honest about it and someone was like, that's stupid, well then clearly it's not going to work. So I find just being honest about it and just talking, it's hard, but I mean, what else are you going to do? So yeah,
maybe it's, I found that throughout that period, it was, it kind of got a lot of the nonsense out of the way right away, because you're, I can't, this is my situation, because I was very open about why I couldn't drink during that period of time. And I was like, if you're not, you don't want to hang out, and that's a deal breaker for you, that's no problem. Like, I understand.
Kudos to you. I was like, oh, I don't drink. That's it. Like there was like, you got to become real close to me for me to start talking about my vulnerabilities. Because it was like, that was not my opener at all. Like it was down the road, like not too far down the road. Like if we went on a couple dates, I was like, sure, but it was definitely not an icebreaker. It was too raw for me. Like it was too, I just felt, yeah, it was too vulnerable for me for strangers. But like kudos for you, because it would have brushed a lot of more ice off the table, because it is, yeah, if you can be that vulnerable, someone will be vulnerable back to you, which is something I've learned and really take.
Yes, it's it's something that I have been working on for a long time, and there is a power to it in that it frees your mind, and I think what it does is it gives the other person an opportunity to meet you at that level. right away. And if they choose to, then it's like, wow, that's impressive. Kind of like the first little bond is strong, and you can actually work quite nicely off that. And if they don't, then you've learned something about where that person's at as well, which is, that's not what they're doing now. And that's totally cool. Yeah. But I also found I was very surprised by how supportive people were in comparison to what I had going on in my head. 100%. I thought, I was just shocked. Like I thought, people would be, first of all, I needed to learn that most people don't give a shit what other people are doing.
Absolutely.
They're 100% invested in their own stuff. You are not even a blip on their radar unless you're really doing something crazy. But for the people who do pay attention to you, and even when we make mistakes, people can be very forgiving, and it was quite eye opener in that respect.
Yeah, I actually have a note that says we're very because I wrote a couple of notes. I was like, very, very self-centered, and we tend to think people are going to think a lot about you, but they honestly don't end up really caring. They're just like, they hear it, it's gone. They're kind of more invested in what's going on in themselves. And it's like, unless you said something super crazy, but the fact that you don't drink or that you don't, use recreational drugs it's pretty common. So it's like the more you talk about it, the more people you're going to find that are either share the same values or like intrigued on why you have those values. But other than that, there's like rarely ever any judgment passed. And like you kind of said, if there was any judgment passed, then you kind of know you're not on the same playing field. So it's not going to work anyways.
Yeah.
Easier said than done, because when you're in the dating scene, like if that shame's still there and it's still strong, like it's still, talking about it now seems easy, but I definitely can remember it not being that easy. So